Hi everyone, Cameron Mitchell here from the Australian BMX Museum and Hall of Fame. Today we are speaking with one of the greatest of all time. I'm speaking about this guy. Our next guest is considered by many, including myself, to be one of the greatest BMX racers of all time. A multiple world champion, an Olympic silver medalist. He even has a medal named after himself. I'm, of course, talking about the great man himself, Mr. Sam Willoughby. Sam, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
How you doing?
Very good. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Inside the Mind of a Champion. First of all, how are you guys dealing with lockdown over there?
Yeah, we've been locked down for about 3 weeks now, so it hasn't. I mean, obviously it's terrible everything going on, but for us here, we've been lucky enough to have everything we need at the house and able to go to the grocery store and stuff. So yeah, we've been getting some projects done around the house and cleaning out the garage finally, and just doing a lot of things that we put to the side while we've been in full BMX mode for probably the last 8 years, really. So yeah, it's a bit of a pause on life and gives you an opportunity to get some other things done. So yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, what does working from home look like for an elite athlete and coach? But it sounds like home duties is more what's on the cards.
Yeah, right now, I mean, just with the Olympics getting thrown back a year, it's sort of a bit of a time to, switch gears and switch off a little bit, and then get ready to reboot. And how full on it's going to be again for the next 12 months for Elise and for all of them going for it. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing right now, and just trying to get all our ducks in a row so that when it comes time to pull the trigger, so to speak, it's everything's ready to go.
Yeah, good. So what we're going to look at today, so Inside the Mind of a Champion, of course, is us getting a picture of what was going inside your head at a particular moment of your career. And the race that you've chosen for us to look at today is the Elite Men's World Title Final from 2012, of course, in Birmingham. So what I'm particularly interested in is if you can take us back in time, not just during that event, but perhaps in the lead up to that event. How far out did you actually start preparing for that event, both mentally and physically? What challenges you faced in the lead up, and what were you thinking and feeling during that time?
Yeah, so it was an Olympic year, 2012. So that was kind of the big goal of mine at the beginning of the year, for sure, to try to win the Worlds, and that was the sort of last chance, I guess, for the ticket to the Olympics. And so a lot rode on that race. Everything had gone pretty well for me in the months leading up. I'd been winning races here in America, and there was 3 World Cups, kind of all Olympic year. Everything gets brought back forward, so the Worlds were at the end of May instead of July. So between sort of February and end of May, we'd done 3 World Cups, plus a few races here in America. So it was pretty full on. Like, the training was all kind of done back in November, December, January. So it was kind of just race to race. We did a World Cup in Chula Vista, then flew straight to Norway, and then back here, and then it was straight to Papendal. And then from Papendal, we actually stayed in Europe and went straight into England for the Worlds, because it was only 1 weekend in between. So training wise, it was kind of just race to race at that point, and I actually had gotten second at 3 World Cups in a row. So I was kind of knocking on the door, and at the time I was training myself. So I was 20 years old training myself, kind of, which I look back at now and think of 20-year-olds now going after it. There's probably not too many going about it like I was, but I was just kind of bull at the gate, and just wanted to win races, and I'd gotten second at 3 World Cups in a row. So I was pretty eager to get to Birmingham and try to go one step better. And I mean, winning an elite world title, that along with the ABA title. That they were the dreams as a kid, and I had pictures of myself at ice cream lid with W1 on it in the backyard, and I'd won those junior ones, but the one you really want is the elite one. And so yeah, that was kind of the lead up going in there, and so there was a lot of motivation, and I'd say a lot of confidence as well, because I was winning races in America. I was knocking on the door at World Cups, and there was definitely no doubt in my mind that I could win that race going into it.
So in the week leading up to the event, so while you're over there, what was happening during the week? How did you prepare during that week?
Yeah, so we were in Birmingham for sort of 10 days before the race, and as I'd said, everything had been going pretty well for me in the lead up, and funnily enough, that week, kind of just everything that could go wrong kind of started going wrong. I was in the hotel room doing some stuff on the rollers or something, and I went to clamp my quick release, and it snapped off and it sheared my hand, and so it split my hand sort of through my whole thumb. So then I had to go into the hospital and get that stitched up. So then I was out of commission for the week, and they were sort of trying to say, you're not going to be able to race with these stitches in and whatever else. But luckily our doctor was kind of able to work around it and pad it up enough so I could still race. But for me, it was always big. The week of the race was my thing always for every race. Was I was real big on creating this. I used to call it the calm before the storm, and it was always about sacrificing something in order for a greater outcome. So I was, turning the music off. I wouldn't allow myself to hear a song that might motivate me or pump me up. So I'd completely shut all music. If I was in the car and a song come on, I'd turn the radio off. I'd wean myself off of caffeine. I never really read, but the week of a race, I'd read a book, and just a bunch of things to really just almost put myself down in a bit of a hole, in hopes that coming out of that on practice day and race day would be, create an even bigger storm. And that was kind of what worked for me. So the cut on the hand kind of made that a little bit easier that week, because I couldn't really do anything. I had to just sort of sit around, and I remember I was reading the Andre Agassi book that week, actually. So yeah, that was kind of the week leading in. And then a couple of days before the race, I actually come down with a bit of, it probably wasn't a full ear infection, but I had pretty much an ear infection. So I had this, like, my ear, I couldn't hear out of my left ear. It was just completely clogged, and was obviously a little, like, balance and stuff was a little bit off and things like that. So it was just a really weird week. But funnily enough, by the time there was all this stuff kind of going wrong around me, and then getting to the race and getting to practice day, and just like, that was finally the first sense of normality again in that week. And I remember just from the get-go getting on the track, and it just almost felt easy just to jump into my routine and get going that week, because there'd been so many hiccups along the way, and it was I knew what to do when it was time to just get to the track and do it.
Calm before the storm. I mean, you're literally doing the exact opposite of what most people would do in the lead up to a big event, by not pumping yourself up, getting motivated, all that sort of stuff. So obviously you try and keep calm before a big event. Is that a way of dealing with nerves, or just becoming focused?
Yeah, I think it's just to sort of stay in touch with what's necessary at that moment. And, Wednesday before the race is not the time. You can't win the race on Wednesday. And, for me, that was even, you go to a world title at an indoor track like that, and everyone wants to get in the arena and see the track and, watch the kids race and do all that. And, like, that was a big no-no for me. Like, I didn't want to go in that arena until it was time to perform. And you just wanted it to be kind of a blank canvas, and you didn't want to have any – I didn't want to have any pre-thoughts of – or ideas of what it should be or what it could be. And I just wanted to roll with the punches and stay in line of each step along the way. And when it was time to do that step, I'd be ready.
Okay. So now we're at race day. It's game on. You flick the switch. What happens? We go from the calm. Now talk about the storm.
Yeah. So it's just routine for me. And, for me, it was big that day just to put my headphones on, and the world titles in that format. Then it was basically 3 motos, 8 quarters, semi, main. So it was like a lot of racing in one day, and it was all running pretty quick, and little tight indoor track. You had to get to the first turn first, and so for me it was just, I knew I was going to be starting in lane 1 in the first heat, because I finished like 6th in the time trial, so I was in the top 8, which meant first lane choice. And it was just a boring, consistent routine for me that day, and that's how I did all of my best races. I'd put my headphones in, I'd put one song on for the day, Marilyn Manson's Sweet Dreams, and that thing would just ring in my head all day, and it was just next step. Little cue for me was just to make sure I kept moving as much as I could in staging. Don't get stagnant, don't talk to anyone, don't just stay in my rhythm, and create a routine. And that day it went flawlessly. I didn't drop a lap, and got myself to the final in lane 1.
All right, so maybe at this point we'll jump into that final. You've, of course, got that video there we're going to get you to play back, so we'll get you to share that screen for us. We're looking at the video, so we've brought that up. So talk us through, even before, so you can just pause it here perhaps, Sam.
Yep.
Talk us through even just coming up the gate here. What's going on in your head? Are you nervous? Are you thinking about Marilyn Manson? What are we doing?
Coming up, normally world's final, you get held behind the hill for a while, so the girls went, and then we're probably like back there on the stairs behind that start hill a bit, and I'm trying to sort of peek over and have a glimpse of how Elise did, and she actually crashed into the first corner while leading, so you kind of process that for a minute, make sure she gets up and she's okay, and then it was basically just back into my, not much I can do about that at that point. You almost try to put that to the side, and then it's really just in continuing into my routine. So behind the start hill, it was very much distracting my mind. Sometimes I would count backwards from 100 in 3 times tables, and just little things, tricks like that would just constantly distract my mind and make me sort of focus on something else. And then once you get up right behind the start hill, then it's sort of the final little visualization. At that point, I'd probably visualized the race probably 10 times in the back, and then you're up there, and it's just that final stage where it was probably just that gate to the first corner and just seeing myself do what I wanted to happen.
And I'm assuming on the way up there, you're not making eye contact with anybody. You're obviously not talking to any of your fellow competitors.
Yeah, I wasn't real big on that. If someone said something, it was, I'd respond obviously, but I wasn't starting conversations, put it that way.
Yeah. And visualization, this seems to be a very, very common theme that everybody that I speak to who are successful in sport in particular, at a high level, talk about visualizing. So you've mentioned visualizing that race. Obviously, you've spent time during the week in the lead up, perhaps thinking about that race, how it was going to pan out, perhaps even what lane you were going to be coming out from, who your greatest threats were. Talk us through the visualization. How do you visualize yourself?
Yeah. For me, I would, in the lead up, probably not a lot of visualization in the week prior. It was really just on race day and before every lap. And I'd always sort of break it down. It was probably like visualizing the whole lap back in the pits. And then as I would get, I almost seen my preparation as like a funnel. And as I'd get closer and closer, that attention would draw closer and closer to just the start. And in the back, it might have been a full lap. And then as we're on the stairs, I probably would have visualized to the second corner, and then as you got behind the hill, it might have been to turn 1, and then really narrowing my focus just down to the start gate.
All right, so now we're on the gate. Obviously, there's a process here where we're going through. Maybe you can roll the tape. Everyone's being introduced. Yep. Again, what's going on in your head? Are you taking any of this in? Are you taking any notice of the crowd, or are you totally just trying to keep it together, keep it focused, and not having any sort of peripheral vision.
Yeah, no, I would have just been sitting on the gate, probably staring at the first corner at this point, and just really, as I said before, just sort of funneling my energy back down. And they're obviously going along here, calling out the names at this point, probably making sure pedals are set where I want them to be, and then just staring ahead. That was always like my little thing: shake my hands out, shake the nerves out, and then just getting ready to stare at the gate, and yeah, everything's soft and loose and ready to react.
All right, so talk us through the lap. We'll just let it roll.
Yep. So I knew it was obviously key to get the best start possible. Short first straight. It was all about getting to turn one. I expected to see Maris. He was probably a bit quicker than me down the hill, and expected to see him out of my peripherals. But the key to me was to just get to the back side of the first jump in a position that I could accelerate, because I knew that from there, just doing the basic sums. If I did somewhat of my best effort, it's pretty hard to put enough gap into someone in that short a distance that he could get across from where he was. So it was really just about doing my best effort, knowing that I didn't have to be perfect, but I had to be just in the mix at that point in order to get to the first turn first. And I remember getting to the bottom of the hill and seeing out of my peripherals and like, oh shit, he got out pretty good. I need to get over this first jump. And I got over that first jump good, and sort of caught back up a bit and was able to be in position at the first corner that we were even, and able to hold my line.
It's amazing at that speed and how everything's going that you're still aware, aren't you, of what's going on around you, even in that sort of proximity.
Yeah.
You knew he was there.
Yeah, 100%. And as it turned out, he got out really good and just about got across. And so yeah, once I got into turn one, I sort of felt myself roll out of that turn. It was really, I was pretty happy with the position I was in, because I knew that, Joris and Willers were going to be diving in on the inside there, which probably would have held Maris up a bit. So for me, it was just about taking a breath in turn one and just accelerating as hard as I could at that second straight. And ultimately, I wanted to be in a position that I could land into the second corner, not really feeling anyone there, and I could almost go a little wider, because I knew that momentum on that tight of a track, if they were all dicing behind me, if I could get out of turn two with a bit more momentum and not having to cover the inside, I'd be pretty free sailing to be able to get home on that tight of a track. So yeah, I got over these good and couldn't feel anyone there, so I actually landed wide and just let myself roll and got a good acceleration for that third straight. And then once again into that last corner, didn't sort of feel anyone there, and allowed myself to not have to touch the brakes and just whip out of that last corner. And yeah, it all happens pretty quick at the best of times, but especially on this track, it was very quick, and here we are already at the finish line.
Yeah, world champion. How did that feel?
Yeah, amazing. Just coming across the line there, and yeah, as you can see, the emotion just threw on my bike, and it was yeah, amazing. I mean, at 20 years old to win the Elite World title is something I'll cherish forever. And it was a special feeling. Like, mum and dad were there in the stands, like right there where I threw my goggles, and it was just, like I said, a lot in the lead up to that race that week, and things kind of going off a bit, and it just felt good for me. Like I said earlier, I was training myself, and I'd only just moved over to America. I was living by myself, and I had a lot of weight on my shoulders at that age. And I look back in hindsight, and a lot of weight that I put on myself. And it was Olympic year, and it was just, it just gave me the world of confidence that I I was doing the right things, and it was, yeah, a big tick, I guess, to in my career to win the elite world title.
Thank you so much, Sam. That's just amazing to actually hear you talk through the process in the lead up to what you were thinking, feeling all the way through. Um, it's a common question that particularly young kids always tend to want to know is how do you deal with nerves? Nerves seems to be the big thing, and as I've spoken to both Jamie and Lee about this, being able to control nerves, there's different ways of doing it, obviously, but that is the difference really between on the big stage, the good riders and the great riders are the ones who can keep that under control. So you've got a little bit of a different approach with your calm before the storm method. So just wondering, is there any pointers you can give to especially the youngsters today?
Yeah, I think everyone's had some sort of success at any age. You've had a moment, whether it be a training day, a race day, some moment where you can draw to and go, that was a time that I performed well and felt good and confident in myself. So I think it's about finding your own success routine and finding what works for you, and that's what worked for me. I had no issue putting everything into it. I had no issue. I would, if anything, overthink things, and I would overdo things. So for me, it was about knowing when to hold them and knowing when to fold them, so to speak, like the great Kenny Rogers would say. But I mean, I lived with. I've got one of these diaries for every year since 2006, and I would just journal and write, and I would just put my everything in there. And for me, that was a way of getting it out of my head, and also a big learning tool as well. And I think that's huge for anyone, just planning and thinking forward and learning about yourself in that way, and having that notebook that you can refer back to and create your own success routines. And like I said, they're going to be a little bit different for everyone. You can you look at someone like a Conor McGregor or someone like that in modern day, that he's a very different approach to, say, someone like myself, he wants to talk and that works for him. And then there's a routine like mine that was very much, like I said, the calm before the storm, and a lot of it was internal, and like I said, I didn't lack motivation. I didn't need to hype myself up in any way. It was about just keeping it in check and keeping the energy going towards the right things that were going to create the outcome that I wanted.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam, for joining us on this episode of Inside the Mind of a Champion. I can't wait to watch this back and learn some more myself.
All right, well, stay safe, and we'll chat soon.
So there you have it, folks, the great man himself, Sam Willoughby. Another amazing insight into what exactly goes on inside the mind of a champion. The calm before the storm. There's something that not too many people do, but certainly did work for Sam. So thanks for watching this short series on Inside the Mind of a Champion. If you like what you've seen, please give us a like or subscribe, and let us know in the comments below if you'd like us to do more of this. This was a little experiment whilst we're all in lockdown, and giving us something to do, but it's been certainly educational for me, so I hope that you got something out of it too. And we'll see you again soon.